Good day, everybody. I am so excited to have another awesome interview this morning from Splints and Whiskey. Splints and Whiskey is our podcast where we talk about military medicine, we talk about trauma training, we talk about mental health, and basically we talk about how we're going to treat our buddies, how it was done in the past, how we're currently doing things, and ways that we can train for this, for us to enhance our skills and be able to treat the warfighter each and every day. And so today I am so excited because I get to introduce the world to one of my favorite people that I've ever met in this profession, and his name is Mike Morton. I'm going to have Mike introduce himself to you, but before I do, I just have to say that Mike is one of the people that I constantly call when I have a therapeutic question, a question on training, a question on what simulation tool he would use while teaching his students, and then on a more selfish side, and you'll learn about this later. Um, he helps a lot with mental health based on his experience with PTSD. So, Michael Morton, thank you so much for agreeing to be on Splints and Whiskey, and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. You're awesome. All right, Mike, will you explain to everybody? Tell us, just your kind of who you are, what you're currently doing now, and give us a little bit about your background as well, please.
Sure. Well, I'm Michael Morton. I am the program director for resuscitative medicine for William Beaumont Army Medical Center and Fort Bliss, Texas. I teach BLS, ALS, PALS, and ATLS. I am a retired infantry sergeant major, 24 years in the Army, 6 combat tours, 4 in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome.
When we met, Mike, I went down to El Paso a couple years ago and was visiting William Beaumont Army Medical Center. And you and I feel like it was like a God incidence that we met because I don't think we were supposed to meet. Your office is down the hall, and we met. And I'll never forget that you brought me into your classroom that's like the best sim center I've ever seen in my life, and it's not even one, but it's amazing. I think you have a lot of great teaching skills that made me quickly learn how that stuff I'll never forget, like songs and stuff like that. I will never forget simply because of that like 10-minute interaction. So thank you in advance to those who, yeah, somebody I might save will be happy that you kind of like commandered me, and so you really taught me how to do CPR correctly. So thank you so much. So tell me a little bit about what you currently do now.
So, as the director, I'm the one responsible for orchestrating and setting up all of the resuscitative training for our medical staff here on Fort Bliss and in our hospital. We train about 3,000 people a year on all
Wow.
the different disciplines. So, we really have to focus not only where we're going in medicine, but on the changes of medicine, because we're teaching and credentialing people to save people's lives.
Right. I love that. So you're constantly having to learn any updated skills or any new changes that there are. Yeah, that's got to be tough. They
Well,
change
it
every
keeps me
day.
busy. It does.
Yeah, I'm sure it does keep you busy. Um, and so day to day, tell me when you do instruct as well, right? You're an instructor
Yes.
and you're the administrator, or the manager. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm
which classes do you
instructor
teach?
trainer, basic life support, advanced life support, pediatric advanced life support, and then I'm the trauma coordinator for advanced trauma life support.
Oh wow. All right. That's so cool. And so tell me, but when you were serving as active duty, you were infantry. Did you have
Infantry,
any
yep.
medical skills back then?
We had the basic life support, combat life support, but other than that, no. I was an infantry guy. I jumped out of airplanes, blew stuff up. I was a ranger, sniper. That's what I love to do.
Well, I'm glad you're my friend and not my enemy.
Um,
Glad you're my friend. So what brought you into wanting to come into this side of the field then? Why aren't you an infantry instructor if there is that?
well, I could have gone that route, but I was a single dad with 3 kids at the time, and I needed to have something that was going to be very stable so that I could be there for my children. So I started working at the hospital, teaching a patient safety program called Team Steps.
Okay.
And one day I walked by and asked if I could take the BLS class, and they said yes. And they asked me when I was done if I wanted to be an instructor. So, of course, I was excited. I'm like, I can be an instructor? Yeah, I'll do that. And then when I finished that, I was like, oh, can I go to the advanced courses? And they're like, no, you have to have a medical license. So I kind of earned my EMT, and I just kept earning my certifications and skills. And then the opportunity presented itself to take this position. And I've been doing it now for about 7 years.
And you do it well. I will tell you that.
Thank you.
You do it well. Tell me about your teaching style. Now, the listeners don't know this yet, and you're extremely humble. I'll go ahead and throw that out there because you're so humble you probably won't even say it. But you've been through continuous education for a really long time after you retired. I mean, so tell me about your teaching style and tell me about the courses that you've taken thus far. Maybe not even just your certs, but you've been going on through continuing education for your master's degree and things of that nature. So if you could tell us a little bit, that'd be awesome. And then bring it into your teaching
Mhm.
style today.
Sure. Well, I have my master's in behavioral health counseling, and I have a master's in business administration focusing on organizational development. I thought with my experience in the Army, actually having PTSD myself and all the combat, that I would be a really good professional counselor. And I realized in my clinical rotations that it wasn't for me, that it was triggering my own stresses, but also that I wasn't able to empathize with the patients. And so you learn a lot more about yourself and then taking care of people. And so you have to be self aware. So I knew that that was not something I could do. And so I switched and did my master's in business administration. And because I love teaching, I fell in love with organizational development, where it's going into companies and businesses, teaching their adults at their different styles and learning styles so that they can retain and apply what they learn. And that's how I run my resuscitative courses. So
Yeah.
I've developed my own teaching method where I will actually kind of reach both audible, visual, and the tactile learners. And my other instructors, they call it the BLS dance because you'll see me doing like the different hand gestures and verbal things. And when I demonstrate something, I do it wrong, and I do it wrong on purpose because
Right.
I've already told them what wrong is, and they see it immediately. So then they don't do wrong, and it works very well.
Yeah. I'm only laughing like really hard because in the 10 minutes that you taught me CPR, I definitely knew the dance and the song. But I think I've shared this with you before. When I was in high school, I had good grades, above average, but not excellent. But when I went to college and I learned how I learn, then I became a 4.0 student. Once I learned how I learn, and I am Miss Visual. I love that saying that says, tell me I will forget. Show me I might remember. Involve me, I understand. That's
Absolutely.
how you teach. No question.
Yep. Experiential learning.
How do you say it?
Experiential learning, learning by doing. That was
Yeah.
my thesis.
Oh, it
For my
was.
master's was experiential learning in hospital education programs.
That's
And so I
awesome.
took those 3 methods, and that's developed. So I do consulting for team building, leadership, communication, and I've developed all these different games, their activities. And so when I go to do this, there's no lecture, there's no PowerPoint, it's all activities.
Yeah.
And then when I'm done, we debrief and we talk about it. And I find that the students learn more by doing it that way than it is to just sit up and talk to them or show them slides.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. That's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't know that you did that. Well, I knew you consulted, but I don't think I knew it specifically to what. So that's really excellent. You mentioned something before about the direction your career took. I, from being a brief student for 5 seconds from you, know that ever since I was there after COVID, I think, but several years ago though, that I was at your hospital. I'm not kidding. I could save anybody's life now, literally because of how much you involved me. So I know how excellent of a teacher you are, and I love it when you answer my questions when I call because you teach me. I was a Spanish major who has never been a medical practitioner, so when I call you, I really want to know, and you clearly explain it to me, which I appreciate. But I'm surprised uh, because so our listeners don't know this at all, but you and I, as we got to know each other a little bit more, you brought me back to your office and you showed me that you're also a writer, and you showed me these amazing books. You gave me some that I have read, regifted. My whole family, friends, many of the soldiers, sailors, airmen that I call on have gotten your books because of this. There is poetry basically through that it kind of healed you through your PTSD, right?
Yes.
So when you studied, when you were studying to become a counselor, why were the patients bothering you? If you empathize with PTSD, I just found that surprising.
Well, we all have our own demons.
Hmm.
And even though you're going through an educational program and you're learning about empathy and reading body language and facial expressions and you're listening, the key in counseling is to develop a mental model. You're developing a picture of what this person's going through.
Okay.
The problem is sometimes our pictures don't match. So, for example, if you were talking about an apple pie, I can picture an apple pie in my head, but that doesn't mean mine actually looks like yours.
Yeah.
We'd have to go into more detail so as you explain it, then I can see your picture. And so I know where you're coming from. So there were a few instances where a person was talking about their stress, their post-traumatic stress disorder issues, and the picture didn't match. And I couldn't understand where they were coming from, only to find out that, to not release any HIPAA information, they were kind of trying to milk the system,
Wow.
and I was not happy that, and I was not going to be a part of that. So I found that I couldn't be unbiased toward those things. And as a counselor, you have to remain unbiased and you have to be professional, and you can't let your emotions take over your actions. So being self-aware, I realized that's just not the path for me. So I went back and got my master's in business.
That is so powerful. I had the chills when you said that. That is so powerful. Uh, I think you know that my background was selling pharmaceuticals before I came into military sales, and I sold I sold psychiatry for 17, 18 years. We did hear that a lot. I have not heard that in this field yet, but I could see uh, that's powerful. That's powerful. So some you feel that, or from your experience, you've seen that there are some people that may or may not be disabled with post-traumatic stress syndrome, but might just be trying to help get it for retirement or something like that, just for a layperson to understand.
And in a sense, yes. And because the system is so overwhelmed, they don't have enough providers to take care of all the patients that they need. A lot of times those little things will slip through the cracks,
Mm-hmm.
and you will have, and again, I can't disagree with your level of trauma, because your
Right.
trauma is your trauma,
Yeah.
and I can't compare your trauma to my trauma. But sometimes counselors will. And, I was in Afghanistan and Iraq 6 times. I was wounded 4 different times, lost a lot of buddies. And, when you're complaining about being stuck in Kuwait, that's a little irritating.
I understand. That's so funny. Wow, I understand. Tell me about your service. I don't want to, because I'm not a counselor or I don't want to bring up PTSD if that is triggering. So is that triggering if we talk about it or?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so tell me about your background because I mean, this is a medical show, right? And it seems like every conversation that I've had thus far for Splints and Whiskey, the podcast, of course, for the true medics or the people that aren't here to make money and aren't here to do things, those guys are saying kind of the same thing that you are. I mean, these are people that we always kind of end with discussing PTSD, veteran suicide, the horrific 22 soldiers that sailors or airmen that take their own lives a day
Mm.
after they've served us. And so how did your service impact you mentally?
Believe it or not, it didn't hit me until probably a year and a half after my last deployment. Because when you're in operational mode, you're constantly training and you're deploying, and then you come back and people think, oh, well, you're going to be off for a year. No, that's not how it works. You
Mhm.
might get 2 or 3 weeks of leave, and then you come back, and now you start the training cycle again. So your deployments are probably close to um, a year and 3 quarters versus just a full year, because it's constantly training, you're preparing, you're constantly ready to go. So you're on this high state of alert for years, and that keeps you sharp and it keeps your mind strong. When it stops, that's when your body starts to process things and your mind starts to process things, and it'll hit you. And I don't care how tough and how strong you are, it will hit you and it will bring you to your knees.
Uh,
When mine hit me, I was actually in the classroom at the Sergeant Major's Academy, and it felt like a wave just crushed me. I actually had to get up out of the classroom and go out, and I was very, I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't figure it out.
it hit you like a plague of defeat or like a what? Like a what hit you? What your
Well,
memories or what you
medically,
saw? Yeah.
medically, you would say it's an anxiety attack because it felt like just a huge wave of heat hit me in the face, and I just
Yeah.
felt it all the way down my body. Um, but it's the triggers that you have to be careful with in PTSD, because not everybody has the same trigger. So, for example, like some people won't like fireworks or loud noises. For me, that doesn't bother me. But for me, it was fire, because my Humvee got hit by an anti tank mine, and it flipped it up, blew the doors off. My driver got trapped. He was burning, and he ended up losing both his legs.
Oh God.
So that's one of my triggers. But of course, now I know about it. Now I know how to deal with things. But it really, really kind of, not in just a physical sense, but an emotional sense, brought me to my knees.
When it brought you to your knees, then how did you deal with it? How long ago was that?
Oh my gosh. Um, 2010.
Wow.
So like 14 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Um, I've always been a pretty resilient person. Physically, mentally, I can deal with a lot of stuff. Very fortunate that I had some family members that were kind of here to help me. Um, I did counseling, but for me, God gives you so many blessings in so many unexpected ways.
Yeah.
And the day they told me I was going to be medically retiring from the Army was the day I wrote my first poem. And
Oh,
so that was my way of dealing with stress, and my way of dealing with PTSD was to write. And the more I started writing, the more I found that it actually helped me not only learn, but understand me and what's going on with me, and then being able to express it. Because I wouldn't sit and talk to you about it, but I could write about it and I
yeah.
could share it with you.
Yeah. You're you are amazing because I remember after I've always told you that I had profound anxiety. I've always had anxiety and I've gone through panic, but I'd never had PTSD. And then I went through a situation where I was diagnosed with PTSD, certainly not on the battlefield, but I've called you so many times. Thank you for helping me.
Of
Um,
course.
You're awesome. And I just happen to have just met you. So you say that God gives us so many blessings. You were mine. Like you have been for years. Thank you. And but so I know that these books help so many people because they've helped me. Like prior to us starting this call, I showed you what my book looks like, and it looks like I've run over it by a Humvee because I read it so many times, or if I'm sad or crying or scared or something. So it really does speak to me. And at the end of the show, I'll put it up so that the listeners can see and read and be able to use these awesome tools that you have. So tell me about your books, though. Tell me yeah, tell me about your books. I mean, I know them, but tell the listeners about your books if you don't mind, and how that therapy has helped you because it's 2010. So yeah, 14 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and I told you the story about how I got published because I'd been writing for years, but I never thought it was good enough to get published. And, I would share it with people, but that was to the extent until I met someone who was an actual counselor, and he published books about counseling. And so
Hmm.
he taught me about how to self publish. And so that's kind of how that came about. I do the design and the graphics for all of my books. I do everything myself. It's all self-published. That's just my brain spinning in creative directions. I was
Yeah.
uh, didn't consider myself to be super creative in high school or growing up, but I had a battalion commander uh, when I was the operations sergeant, and he was really big on PowerPoint and slides and presentations, and I hated it. And he
Yeah.
just forced me to keep doing it. And so I learned so much that I actually got really good at it with the creating the graphics and pictures. And then it became kind of a hobby as well. And
Yeah.
so when I do my books, I do them all myself. All
Yeah.
the
It's
graphics,
amazing.
design, the pictures, everything, I do it myself.
I didn't know that until today. The one that's come out most recently that I'm gonna buy in about 5 seconds. I can't believe I haven't bought it yet. Is called Behind the Camouflage. That the picture on the front of it is a soldier, and it like again, I'm getting the chills again. It literally, when I see his face, it like pulls me in. It is so good. I did not know that you did that
Mhm.
at all, nor did I know who the picture was of. Do you want to share that, or you don't have to?
Oh, yeah. Sure. Everything that's in my books on the covers, the graphics, designs, everything has a meaning. I
Yeah.
don't just randomly put things in it. Everything has a meaning. And so the concept of behind the camouflage is where it comes from my experience when people would see me in my uniform in the army. They see this guy with all these, ranger, and oh, he's a parachute guy. Oh, he's got all this stuff on.
Yeah.
But all you're seeing is the camouflage. You don't see behind the camo. You don't see what's behind me, what's in me. And a lot of times we are taught that we don't show weakness,
Yeah.
especially in the infantry. You don't show weakness. So the only thing you're going to get to see is this camouflage face. That's it. And so the camouflage face and behind the camouflage is the poetry explains life in the military, the camaraderies, the losses, um, things on the battlefield, life after the battlefield, so that you can kind of see behind the camouflage. You're going to see this is all about me. Everything I wrote in here is about me or what I experienced.
How has it changed you? Do you think that not the writing? You said that in 2010 it just hit you and you felt just knocked over. You began writing, and then how have you changed through recovering of PTSD? How different are you from when you went in? I mean, when I see you, I understand the point of behind the camouflage because when I've met you, I've hugged you, talked to you. I don't even know if I've ever hugged you actually, because I became best friends with you on the phone after the
Mhm.
fact, after I read everything and then went through my PTSD myself. But you are a big guy, infantry. These guys can't see you because we're on a podcast. So, this big dude, like lamb in a lion's body, though. And I love that. And then you're so creative, and to me, it's like the coolest thing ever to see a infantry guy it was so strong that he's able to talk about mental health and write poetry to boot, be the best cook ever, an amazing dad, and then be able to be this creative and stuff. I mean, were you always that person, or did healing from PTSD put you in it to become somebody else?
I think I was always that guy. I
Mm-hmm.
just hadn't learned the tools how to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are who we are. We are who God made us. And sometimes it takes a while to see the end product or the skills that were there. And if you're not groomed, if you're not mentored, if something isn't put into your place that's going to cause you to change to learn, well, then maybe you won't develop it yet. And it could take a while.
Yeah.
So for me, I think I'm just like everybody else. I'm just the normal guy. I do what I do. I will always try to do my absolute best. And so when I teach my classes, my goal is to give them the absolute best training they've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Um, and and that means that, you know what, I have to not only know my equipment, myself, my product that I'm teaching, but I have to make sure I give you the best product too.
Yeah.
And so, we work very hard. Like I said, we talked about the BLS dance, and I've done a couple original research programs or projects in my programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that this is a great way to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm always looking for better ways to teach, to present, and when I teach my classes, I always ask my students two questions at the end. And the first question is, did you learn something today?
Uh-huh.
Because I want to know that they learned. And then the second one is, did you have a little fun?
Yeah.
Because so many,
So let me ask you this. Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, because we froze for a second. That's okay.
Yeah.
It was at the end, so it was okay of that sentence. Did you learn something? Did you have some fun? I think you asked me that actually when I was CPR in it. Do you what do you feel like for our listeners? I'm sorry to bring it back to PTSD, but it's just because everybody wants to talk about it, and right now I can't help it. It's like God keeps leading me back to talking about it. Um, how is every do you ever heal from PTSD as an infantry guy or as these with your backgrounds? Because I again not I didn't serve, but I call on a lot of fellas that are retired now or gosh, I have a lot of youngsters I don't train, but I go and see them training now, and I'm so scared of what they're going to see because they're so young
Hmm.
and warfare's so different now. You know, the stuff I hear is so, but I don't want to say it's so different. I wasn't there before. I don't know what you've seen. I
Yeah,
don't think I could unsee it. Right?
you
Do
can.
you do you ever um are you ever cured? I guess is the question, or is
I don't.
PTSD okay? So do you wake up every day um and you wake up every day that you are a survivor of post-traumatic stress syndrome? I can't say it right. Uh, but what do you have to do each day to maintain your mental health? What do you have to do each day? Or what are some good things you could tell our listeners that they should do?
Well, the thing about PTSD is it's different for everybody. Everybody has their own strengths, their own shortcomings. Everybody has their own triggers. So I would say that you're never cured of PTSD, but you learn how to manage you.
Yeah.
And you also need to not only learn to manage you, but you need to learn and understand what you are and who you are, why you're there. So for me, the six combat tours, I lost a lot of buddies, a lot of death and destruction in the places I was at. Um, so I already know what my triggers are. I know what I can see and what I can't see. And so, you know, um, like World War II movies, I can watch them because it doesn't relate in my brain on what I experienced, unless it's like Band of Brothers or Hacksaw Ridge or the Pacific, because those are very graphic. I won't watch them. If it's any kind of movie that it's more about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, I won't watch them
Gosh,
because
yeah.
I know it will affect me.
Yeah.
Usually I start my days off just like anybody else. You get up and get cleaned up and have a cup of coffee. But I like to start my day by watching funny little animal videos, like animals dancing or doing little. And so I was very fortunate in my career to go to what's called master resiliency training. And I got to go to the big one at University of Pennsylvania. And you learn on what's called hunt the good stuff. So of course you can wake up every morning like, oh, I've got to get up. Oh, I've got to go to work. Oh, I have to do all this. Or you can say, oh, I woke up this morning. Hey, that's really good.
Right. Yeah.
What's the good stuff? What am I looking for that's good today? And so for me, I'm trying to always hunt the good stuff because there's so much negativity in the world and so much negativity in people. I don't want to be around that. I want to be happy. I want to be at peace.
Yeah. Well, if I call you crying sometimes, is that not the good stuff? Do you want to kill me? I
No,
won't do it
no,
anymore.
that doesn't bother me.
Thank you. Um, wow, this is so major, man. This is so deep. Um, we have a lot of people discussing going into because I don't want to kill you on time either. It's been an hour. There's a lot of people right now, there is a lot of negativity in the world. There was before, but it keeps getting more. It seems to me that it's becoming, more negative, and I think I hear that from others. But with the conflicts that are going on and the different sorts of warfare and the possibility, I mean, you're at friggin' Fort Bliss, a mecca of the United States Army. I love that place. Oh my gosh. But when you're there, I mean, your patients, your friends, your family members, your kids' friends, all of them, they could be suiting up and deploying somewhere and they could see things that you didn't even see. Do you have any advice for them in preparation? Is there any way to prepare mentally for what these kids might see out there?
In a sense, yes. So in the military, in the army, we do what we call train as you fight. So the training scenarios and the things that we do, you try to create and make it as realistic as you possibly can. Now you can only moulage your patient so much, and you still go, okay, it's not real.
Yeah.
For me, when I was training my soldiers, we would do the moulage, but I would throw the other things in that they weren't counting on. For example, you're bringing the Bradley fighting vehicle to lower the ramp to evacuate a patient. Well, I would tell you that your ramp doesn't work. The door doesn't work.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So not only are they having to care for this patient and you see the brutality of wounds and blood, but now you've also got to make sure that you're thinking strong and safe to get them out.
Yeah, that's good. I love that
So
train as you fight. Yeah, like when that's how I got to know like your buying style, if I'm selling you something is that whenever I found something that was super realistic, you wanted it so that
yeah,
your people would see it, like the skins and the masks and if for the listeners that don't know Mike as well as I do, this man really, really decorates all of his mannequins to make them look like real soldiers. He tattoos them. It's killer.
yeah.
Puts nipple rings in them. I mean, just so that you're always on guard. I mean, as it, that muscle memory, nothing's gonna freak your people out. I bet. So I guess that's the case. You with your experience, you know what you've seen. You want to train your people that you have for that little time as best as you can. And then if you it's really cool that you're always there when someone needs you. Do you have brothers like that you served with that you can call at a moment's notice still today if you have a triggering moment that writing doesn't cure? I mean, is that something fellowship? Do you have groups of people or things like that? Or is it mainly just you just pray about it, write, all these things?
Definitely a combination of all of the above.
Mm.
So I have a group of guys that I grew up with since I was 12. And so about every year we try to get together. So there's that support channel there. All of them served in the army, the Air Force. So there's certain things we can talk about. There's a couple of other buddies that we actually were in combat together. So we will call each other if we're having one of those kinds of days. And of
Mm.
course, a lot of prayer, writing, um, and just knowing myself, because I'll know when I'm having a good day and when I'm not having a good day. And kind of the funny thing is when I'm not having a good day is usually when I do my best writing, because the
I
emotion
bet
is
that's
just
true.
coming out early.
Yeah, I bet. Oh God, I bet that's true. I bet that's got to be so true. Yeah, I'm a singer songwriter, and my best songs certainly come out of some rough patches, But gosh, it makes some pretty awesome art. Um, I love what you said, that you wake up every day and you say, "What's the good stuff?" I don't want anybody to forget that. We're going into a season of time where our brothers and sisters that are listening to this today, that we could be deploying, or we could be doing, getting involved in combat, whether it's here, stateside or overseas. There's a lot of warfare going on. We know that. And so I love the Mike Morton question, to wake up each morning and say, "What's the good stuff?" I love that. I've kept you for an hour and 5 minutes, and I could keep you for 45,000 hours. I love you so much. And I know that the listeners are going to be like, "Why did you stop this?" I think we should have a discussion, another call on discussion, because some of the people that we've interviewed have asked, "When are we going to have a mental health call?" Right? They've asked that. And I said, "Well, after I do the Mike Morton interview, we'll have one." So congrats. Please come back. Please come back. So, is there anything you want to uh, leave guys and girls, our service brothers and sisters, and then those that train them? Any last minute words of advice besides that? I want everybody to buy your books because they're amazing. Um, because I know what's going to happen is they are going to reach out to me and say, "I love that guy. Can I have his info?" I'm sure you wouldn't mind if I gave it. I'll ask you first,
Sure.
but I'd love to be able to forward people on to you who'd like to know more about you, and I bet that there will be. But what's any last minute thing or last words for the listeners from you?
No shortcuts.
Ooh, I like that.
Don't cut corners. Don't um, expect people to know what you know. Don't expect them to get it on the first try. Uh, and don't make shortcuts. Train to standard, not to time. Make sure that they are proficient in the skill and the task that you're training them, and then make it harder.
God, you're awesome, man. You're awesome. Everybody, I want to thank you for listening to Splints and Whiskey. I'm rarely speechless, and I'm actually speechless. Thank you, Mike Morton. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your continued service in El Paso. It's worldwide. Thank you for your friendship. And thank you that you're strong enough to tell people when you were weak so that you can help those that are broken heal. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I love you to pieces. Everybody, thank you to Mike Morton. I'm sure you're going to end up asking me to connect you to him because he's so awesome. I'll put in all of the links or wherever we're going to be, his books. I won't give you his cell phone number. Only I can have that. Joking. But we certainly will connect you guys. And I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to keep talking to you, Mike. So everybody, thank you so much for listening today to Splints and Whiskey. Mike Morton, you're amazing. Retired Army. All right. I'm going to stop this now. Thank you, everybody. I just can't even talk anymore because I feel like I'm going to start crying. You're so awesome. Okay. Bye bye. Stop it.